So originally, I wasn't going to watch this particular video, uh, mainly because there is neither one is better. It's definitely the most subjective question of the 21st century, I'd say. It's really, what do you want? And that's it. We don't have a ton of choices when it comes to mobile operating systems. We have two. Of course, you could opt for a non-smartphone. Um, but yeah, it's of course it's a clickbaity title. I'm watching it literally only just to make my response to it or my interjections, but I don't even know if you can hear it in my voice. Excuse me. I'm not that thrilled. I actually just woke up from a nap and I'm actually kind of hungry, so excuse me if you happen to hear a clanking spoon in the background. But at the end of the day, there's no right or wrong answer. Um, I did start watching it maybe about a week and a half ago, and I think he's doing like 20 things or something, not 20 comparisons or something. I don't know. If I forget, we'll find out together, of course. But before we go any further, I just want to say they're different operating systems, and that's it. I feel Android is more versatile, while iOS is probably more stable. And it's more stable because it runs on a limited amount of hardware. For Android, saying that it's versatile, what I mean is you have plenty of options to get a device that runs Android. If I think about what I currently have in terms of smartphones, I have a Samsung Galaxy S22, which is what I'm using right now to record this. I also have a Samsung Galaxy S22 Plus, which I'll probably start using to record these types of things at some point. But I bought those on eBay. The regular S22 was about 50% off from the seller. It was $400 instead of the marketed 800, and the S22 Plus was $600. It came with a couple cases, screen protector already installed, and some extra screen protectors. And I said, hey, the retail price is $1,000, so I was open to the idea of using a bigger phone. Come to find out, that phone's just too big for my hand. I really don't like using that at all. But it's an okay device. I also have a Sony Xperia 5 Mark III, which I use mainly for watching movies. I think it has a really good screen. Um, and yeah, just the experience I get when I'm able to watch Blu-rays on that is really, really good. I have a Microsoft Surface Duo, which is Microsoft's folding phone. I think it's a good device. I would not use it as a phone though. And in fact, I was listening to the Vergecast today, and one of the hosts said that he recently revisited the Microsoft Surface Duo 2. And of course, he runs down with the usual, after a bunch of software updates, it was a lot better to use. However, the fact that you have to open it to interact with it makes it a non-starter for a lot of people. And I will say I agree with that because it is a hassle. If you happen to take that with you as your main device and had it in your pocket, yes, you get a notification. You got to, pull it out, open it, use two hands to potentially respond, and maybe you don't even respond. And at that point, you're kind of probably a little bothered that you have to constantly keep opening this device. So when it comes to that device in particular, I feel like there are a couple of options. You could just be annoyed and deal with what it is you have to open it every time you want to use it. With the first generation, because you can fold it all the way back and the two back sides can lay flush with each other, you could potentially keep it open all the time, but then you end up walking around with two exposed screens, which with most phones you have one exposed screen all the time, and this might be a little risky to have two exposed screens all the time, so that's definitely an option. You could get fully integrated into the smartphone, smartwatch, Bluetooth headset idea. And I don't want to say ecosystem because at that point you'd be using devices from different vendors. But yeah, you could leave it folded, keep it in your pocket, have a smartwatch that's connected to it via Bluetooth. Also have a quickly accessible pair of Bluetooth earbuds that you either keep in all the time or that you might have the carrying case in your pocket. Microsoft does make a pair of Bluetooth some things. I know they have the Surface headphones that you wouldn't wear all the time, but I feel like they have some little truly wireless little in-ear earbuds or something. And of course, you could also just not buy it, which is what most people did. Whatever the retail price was way too much. Microsoft slashed the price something ridiculous. And then now, with the second generation, I think they did the same thing. So I bought mine used. And in fact, everything that I purchased on eBay at a significantly reduced price from what the new retail price is. But I'd want to say the retail price for this Surface Duo, I think it started at $1,300, I think. And then I don't remember what it got reduced down to if you were to buy it new, but I bought it used and I ended up spending, I think, about $350 on it. Also, it has 250 gigs of storage as opposed to the base 128. So a drastic difference between what I paid for it and what it retails. There are a couple dings and scratches on it. The back has a couple small cracks on it, but it came, with the original box and everything, and even a little case that I don't see how you would actually use it because that just seems like a hassle. But, for the price, I was satisfied. And I wanted to draw out that for each one of these Android devices, I personally do something different with each one of them because that's how versatile Android is, in my opinion. And it allows for device manufacturers to kind of put their own spin on Android. I also have a Pixel 2, which isn't really that important. I use that just as a workout phone, but at this point, it's so old that it's fine. Just I turn it on when I go work out, and then I turn it off. I do have an active SIM card in there, so that way I can stream Spotify. But even with that, I bought that phone 2.5 now, maybe 2.5, close to 3 years ago, for $85 on eBay because it had a software issue. I was able to connect it to my computer, run a couple of command lines, command prompt lines of code, and I was able to push Android to it, and it's been working fine ever since. So yeah, definitely quite a few options when it comes to the Android field, and I feel each one of the phones that I have, I have it for a specific reason. I will say the Samsung Galaxies, yeah, it's kind of a stretch, but now that I have them, and I will say the resale value on them is usually not that good. I've listed the S22 Plus on eBay, and I haven't really got many hits on it. So yeah, I'm probably just going to keep them. But I do have one iPhone, and that is honestly where my main SIM card is in. I use that. That's the phone that's in my pocket when I leave the house. I also have an Apple Watch to go along with it. I do not have AirPods. I hope I never end up buying those. But I think for me, that I know that that's not the case for a lot of people. Not the AirPods part, but just the number of phones that I have and the use cases that I have for them. And for me, it is representative of how versatile Android is and how simple, I'd almost say, iOS is. And I I don't have a desire or a need to have multiple iPhones. An iPhone is an iPhone. You get a Pro version, you might get an additional camera on the back, or the not the Pro display, the high refresh rate, whatever they call it. They have to put a name on everything. But yeah, if I were to buy another iPhone, it would be to replace the one that I currently have, which is the 12 mini. So I would buy the 13 mini and then sell the 12 mini, and again, would still have only one iPhone. But the reason I have the iPhone is iMessage, and that's it. So regardless of what else is said in this particular video, of course, these are their opinions. For me, it's literally one app, iMessage. And a lot of people know that iMessage is real. Some people, I guess, who are consumers probably don't realize the extent of it. I mean, once you have the iPhone, you realize, oh, if my friends have it, then we're able to do things that just regular SMS doesn't allow for. But it's definitely a US centric thing where, yeah, our messaging app is tied to the messaging platform, which that platform is then tied to a particular hardware, which that is just, it's frustrating because I don't like the iPhone at all. I I'm not going to rant because I'm sure I have opportunities to interject as we go through this 20-minute video, and I'm already 10 minutes into my little rant here. But all in all, the iPhone is what Apple wants it to be. And as a consumer, you have to bend to their will. Whereas with Android, you have the flexibility that these different device manufacturers are going to do something slightly different or really different with Android. And then you can kind of go along with, hey, I like this version of Android over here. So this is what I'm going to do. This is the phone I'm going to purchase. And you go for it. And the last thing I'll say before I press play, because again, I'm almost 11 minutes into this and we haven't even actually started watching the video. It's already kind of a misnomer. Android versus iPhone. The title is comparing an operating system to a device. So you can't really do that. But because iPhone only runs one operating system, I understand what it's saying, but it's not possible to do. I'm reaching, but again, it really is. It's Android, which is an operating system that is run on a variety of devices compared to a single device. You're at that point, you're not comparing the same thing. But I knew what he meant. Everybody who's watched this, the millions of people who watched this knows what he meant. Figured I'd just throw that out there just because I'm like, well, wait a minute, you're comparing two things that shouldn't be compared. But I get what you're saying. So if we were to say, hey, let's compare Samsung versus iPhone, or even if you just said One UI versus iPhone, I'd say, oh, okay, like I get what you're saying, but Android itself is an extremely broad category. So I'm curious to see what it has to say. And without further ado, again, I'm 12 minutes into this and we haven't even started the video. Let's get to it.
All right, so I'm in California with Marquez from MKBHD. Apple has just announced the latest features coming to iOS. Google a couple of weeks ago announced the latest features coming to Android. So we're just sat here thinking there's never been a better time to decide who's doing it better. We're going to go through the 10 different aspects of the smartphone experience and see who wins more. It could be a tie.
And I will say, it's also it's so subjective. I mean, he has identified 10 different aspects, but all 10 of those aspects might not be applicable to everybody. I know it's just a video and it's his opinion. So I enjoy talking to myself essentially right now because these are thoughts that I would be having anyway. But yeah, it's really just, hey, maybe I'll agree with you. Maybe I don't. Maybe those things matter to me. Maybe they don't.
Oh my God, yeah, we should have done 11.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Just saying.
Okay.
And see, even right there, it's like just pointing that out right there kind of just goes along with what I was saying is that 10 random things, that arbitrary things that probably are relevant to a lot of people. But if they could have just pointed out 11, then it's like, oh yeah, let's just find one more thing that users might deem a comparable thing between the two platforms.
So let's start with the display. Do you think the iPhone's display has anything special about it? Or do you just think it's like a pretty average Android phone screen with a thicker border and a kind of weird looking notch?
It's funny, the phone has so many things that are best in class and then weirdly below average. Like as far as screen to body ratio, it's decent, but then it has the biggest notch you would ever see if it was an Android phone.
It's pretty much the only phone in today's market with a notch.
Exactly. It's probably the smoothest 120 hertz display that I use in a phone.
That's interesting.
Because of the responsiveness and the touch sample refresh rate.
So do you put this on the same level as a Samsung screen, like the S22 Ultra?
Very close. I think the S22 Ultra barely beats it in some things like brightness and sharpness.
Yeah.
But if you're just going like, is it a great A+ screen? Yes.
For me, the S22 Ultra screen, like I'm holding them side by side, that feels like a different class.
It is.
When I'm in a bright scenario, like the sun is beaming down on it, this is actually so bright that it feels bright.
Yeah.
Whereas this is like, okay, it's visible.
Right. There are some edge cases where you notice the difference. And speaking of edge, the little bit of a curve around the edge,
Yeah.
you talked about the way it feels. That's something, I kind of prefer the flat of the iPhone, to be honest. So I give it a little bit of extra credit there.
But it's sharp. It's like your hand is curved. The phone.
I hear that a lot, but I weirdly kind of like that.
Okay. I understand it from an aesthetic thing, but
Yeah.
But it leaves a dent in my hand.
I'm holding an S21 Ultra, which is somewhere in between the two, and
Yeah.
I think that was a nice happy medium. If we just go all of Android, iPhone gets an A+. But if we're just going against Samsung, it's trailing by a little bit.
Okay.
So it's up to you. I'll leave it up to you.
Okay, we'll call it a draw. That's
And see how subjective it is. I mean, yeah, we went from all of Android, which I was essentially even just what I own here, several device manufacturers, and then now it's like, well, let's just talk about Samsung in comparison to the iPhone. It's all subjective because yeah, he's if he's holding an iPhone, I'm assuming it's a 13 Pro Max, and comparing it to just a $200 Android phone, whatever it might be, a Motorola something, then it's like, well, yeah, the iPhone screen's going to be better. But if you're also comparing the iPhone screen, which again, in terms of phones that came out in 2021, is only what, four phones? I guess five. When did the third generation SE come out? Was that the beginning of 2021? I think it was, but we're not counting that one. So the 13 series, those four phones, are you comparing the screens of those four phones to all of the Android phones that came out in 2021, or just the most expensive Samsung phone that came out in 2021? So there's no answer to that question. It's just, oh well, depending on which Android phone you have, it might compare to the iPhone screen. Who, by the way, I don't know if all iPhone screens are made by Samsung, but a good deal of them at least were. If they might still be. So yeah, a draw because it's like, well, it depends.
Sounds like a draw to me.
Yeah.
So number 9 is performance. And on paper, it kind of seems like a really easy one. Because if you just run like Geekbench multi-core benchmark, the iPhone scores higher and draws less power. Even if you're a gamer and you don't care about those numbers, you get games earlier and those games seem to run smoother. In your mind, is there any nuance to this at all, or is the iPhone just better at performance?
If you're counting performance as smooth feel, frames per second, that type of thing, and overall power efficiency, yeah, the iPhone is a clear winner in my mind.
Do you think the iPhone even beats out potentially like gaming-oriented Android phones?
Well, it depends on if the game you play is on that platform. If the performance is great, but you can't play the game you like, is it actually a good performer?
I guess the one saving grace for Androids is they do come with a lot more RAM. Like this is the top-end iPhone 13 Pro Max, 6 gigs of RAM. This comes with up to 12. In your experience, does that contribute anything to like the multitasking experience, or does it not matter?
Wait, I mean, are we talking about? What do we? I guess we are talking about performance, and we went, from gaming to multitasking. Yes, certain Android phones have a lot of RAM in it, and certain ones don't. And the way iOS is written to be as efficient when it comes to RAM management, it could. I mean, yeah, it depends. I mean, Marquez, as you've already said it. Well, it depends. So yeah, I'm not going to stress over this too much, but clearly, yeah, it depends is the question. Or if he had just titled this video comparing those two explicit phones in his hands, then I think it'd be easier for the two to actually make some solid answers to these questions. But again, it's Android, which is a crap ton of products compared to Apple's 4. So yeah, it depends.
3 gigs of RAM on an iPhone feels like 8 gigs of RAM on an Android phone sometimes because of the way they just fill up memory and aren't as efficient. So yeah, you can multitask more on a Samsung phone because of the extra RAM, but also just because there's features that let you do more.
Do you find you do that?
And see, he even just said you can multitask more on a Samsung phone, but the title of the video is Android versus iOS, not Samsung versus iOS or Samsung versus iPhone.
Like I know Android has split screen multitasking technically.
Yeah.
You do use it?
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't use it?
I don't personally use it that much.
I don't use it either. I would consider myself like a fairly hardcore user, and even then, just having picture-in-picture is about as far as my multitasking goes.
I gesture back and forth all the time, copying and pasting. I know I can multi-window, I just never do it.
Okay, moving on to battery. And so this is my experience, right? So iPhone 13 Pro Max has got the best battery life of all the big phones, and iPhone 13 Pro has the best battery life of all the compact phones. Does that mirror your experience?
There's 2 phones right now with 6,000 milliamp hour batteries, and if I put the ROG phone at 60 hertz, it is a better battery technically than the iPhone at 60 hertz. But yeah, generally I found that this is world-class battery. 13 Pro, also world-class battery. Mini is in the equation too. Not as great, but then you're comparing it to other phones that are small.
You're comparing it
And okay, I'm sorry.
to miniature phones at that point, right?
Yeah, which doesn't have great batteries anyway. So yeah, top of the class as far as battery for sure.
So there's another side to battery, which is the charging. how much do you think that factors into the battery experience? Does it matter to you?
To me, it matters a lot.
Yeah, and I'm gonna let him finish after I talk because I don't want to just repeat what he says. But yeah, it is very important. So one, just the port goes to Android because USB-C is universal. As I look around my room right now, I got my S22 right here actually on the charger, but it's resting on my ThinkPad, which also charges via USB-C. So does the Surface, so does the Sony Xperia, so does my other ThinkPad, of course, so does the larger S22, so does my Sony Xperia X Compact, which I didn't even mention earlier, which came out back in 2015, I think. Maybe, I think I got it in 16. So let's just say 16. But again, that's 6 years ago. Certain Android devices have already swapped over to USB-C, yet here in 2022, we're still using Lightning on the iPhone. So the type of port associated with charging is very important. And then I feel the charging speeds and things of the such have been tweaked to better utilize that particular port more so than Lightning has. Also, when it comes to battery sizes, it's going to be kind of arbitrary because it has a lot to do with efficiency. But when it comes to battery health and battery care, from my experience, I have enjoyed what some modern and even some older Android devices have allowed you to do when it comes to trying to take care of your battery. So, in summary, to not try to go through all of them, Sony has been doing it for a while, which you plug it in and it tries to learn your charging habits so that way it minimizes the amount of time that it stays on the charger at 100%. So, for example, you go to bed at 10 o'clock every night, you wake up every morning at 6. What it's going to do is going to eventually say, okay, I know that you wake up at 6, so I'll probably charge up to 80 or so percent. And then I'll probably get there by, I don't know, maybe 4 o'clock in the morning or something. I'm making up these numbers. But for the next 2 hours, it will slowly get up to 100%. So that way it stays at 100% for the smallest amount of time because it has learned it's learned your charging habits. The Samsung and the newer Sonys actually allow you to just say, you know what? Don't even charge the phone to 100%. I think I have the Samsung set to 85 to just cap out at 85 and the Sony to cap out just at 90 and just leave it there. And when, I'll end up leaving it on the charger, but it's not at 100%, which is bad for your battery. And I'd say thanks to Marquez for making a video about that. But in his video, of course, he praises, I think, recent things that Google has done with the Pixel. And then I think Apple has done something with the iPhone. But it's especially with the iPhone, from what I can see, it's not nearly as transparent in terms of being able to set those particular settings. I didn't think I would want to be able to change the total charge that the phone would receive. But now, knowing that it's bad for the battery to remain at 100%, I have no reason not to just let it cap out at 85% or 90%. And again, that's thanks to one of his videos. But with the iPhone, I will charge it sometimes before I go to bed. And then, of course, by the time I wake up, it's just sitting at 100%. But there'll be other times where I just will not charge it because it's like, well, I think I'll be good for tomorrow. Because, I don't really use my phone too much during the day. But I do like that option to choose in Android of, hey, we have taken the time to implement these things when it comes to your battery's health. What would you, the user, like to actually do? So I think that also fits into the battery, the charging, all of that. It's a nice realm package where Apple is just like, hey, use this proprietary port. You got to buy this proprietary cable or this cable that's made, that's a part of our Made for iPhone program. You plug it in, and we'll do all the potential magic in the background for you to try to get it so that it charges to in the most optimal way. And yes, my Sony Xperia X Compact did that 6 years ago. But with these newer devices, I like the option to say, you know what? I'm just going to leave it at 80% or 90% or whatever because I don't need 100% to get myself through the day. So let's see what he has to say.
It changes the way I use a phone. If it charges quickly, and I know I can charge quickly, I don't mind it dying quicker because I know I can plug in for 5 minutes and be fine.
Okay.
It's a different type of peace of mind.
It's interesting because for me, I would much rather my phone doesn't die in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a phone where I can actually trust that. Like on the way here, like I took a flight from UK to US, so I was moving back 8 hours, which meant that I effectively had a 24-hour day, and this still had 20% left at the end of that. And so at that point, like, isn't fast charging just making up for a lack of capacity in the first place?
And I'd say there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, though. Yeah, I would say, yeah, definitely. But it also could contribute, not contribute. It could, man, what's the word I'm looking for? It could be something that's working in tandem with it, though, because if you do have higher capacity and you have fast charging, then that's good. So I wouldn't say it's making up for it if we're just comparing a more efficient phone that doesn't have fast charging to a less efficient phone with potentially a smaller battery or however it's draining more quickly to it, but has fast charging, then yeah, and that one-to-one comparison, then yeah, it is like, well, it fast charges, but it drains faster as well. This one doesn't drain as fast, but it charges slowly. But hopefully we get to the point where we can have these large capacity batteries and these supersonic fast chargers that do whatever they're supposed to do. I don't know the sizes of the batteries in the iPhones. In fact, I think Apple tries their best to not publicize that. Of course, the numbers get out. But with my Samsung Galaxy S22 Plus, I believe there's a 4,500 milliampere hour battery in that. Same thing with the Sony Xperia 5 Mark III. And for how I use them, they are perfectly fine. But in terms of them getting through a day, when I had my main SIM card in either of those, and of course, just being able to have one USB-C cable sitting right here next to my bed, or the one on my computer desk that I can unplug to charge my phones or my laptop or my headphones, it's nice versus this literal single lightning cable that I have, that charges one device. Yeah, it's really, it's nice to the whole universal aspect of USB-C for me is almost just as important as any of the points that they're going to make here. But that's me because I'm not a power user, so I don't need that. But even if I were a power user, the speeds that come along with the ability to fast charge makes up for any inefficiencies that the phones might have when they're consuming battery life.
So if I could only pick fast charging and mediocre battery, or great battery, mediocre charging, I would pick great battery, mediocre charging.
Right.
But if you don't have a great battery, you better have good charging. And a lot of Android phones have incredible charging. The iPhone can charge decently quickly, not like super fast, but I still put it as the winner in the category just because the baseline battery life is so good.
Okay, so the battery award goes to the iPhone. Okay, this is where it gets kind of juicy. So we want to talk about the cameras, and we'll start with photography, and then videography can be the next section.
Okay.
So I guess a good way of kind of getting to the meat of it.
So I'll say this. This is just my personal opinion. And I've been watching both of their videos for a while. I mean, Marquez's stuff for a lot longer. But even Mr. With the Boss now, maybe about a year and some change. But Marquez, I don't know, 4 or 5, maybe even 6 years. And I honestly just feel that Mr. Who's the Boss just has more fun shooting his videos. And I don't want to say Marquez looks bored right now, but he kind of does. And I feel like, yeah, the energy that Mr. Who's the Boss has in his videos just make his videos really, really exciting to watch. And yeah, I still watch Marquez's stuff because of how big his platform is. He's able to get a lot of the things sometimes before even other reviewers. But yeah, it's entertaining, but also more informational, where I think I'm equally entertained and informed when watching Mr. Who the Boss's videos.
Is if you had to pick one phone for the rest of your life to take photos with, would it be an iPhone? Would it be an Android?
Yeah, it would be the iPhone.
To take photos.
And see, interesting that he even says that. Yeah, it's a good camera, but I mean, most people probably don't get photos off their cameras or off their phones. But yeah, if we're assuming that, yeah, the phone that you have today is the one that you have to use for the rest of your life, that lightning port just ain't cutting it. And for me, regardless, I mean, if I'm comparing it to the Galaxy S22 Ultra that they have right there, then no, I'm definitely going with the Samsung. But that lightning, it ain't cutting it.
Photos.
Yeah. And it's only because there's a couple small nuances within that question, which is you take photos from the camera app. You also take photos sometimes inside of another app.
That is true.
Instagram stories, TikTok's video shooter, Snapchat, whatever you're doing. And all those things typically behave really well on the iPhone. Now, if I knew I was going to go to a national park and I was going to take a lot of bird photos, believe me, I'd take one with more zoom than the iPhone's got. But if you just want to like blanket everything for the rest of your life, you can only take one for photos. It still would be the iPhone.
Attention passengers, as a reminder, during your flight, we will have Wi-Fi available for an extra fee.
I didn't budget for that.
Take one for photos. It still would be the iPhone.
That actually surprises me, because in my mind, I would pick a Vivo, a Samsung, or a Pixel. I know they kind of over-process.
And I know I talked for 10 minutes before we even started the video, but see, he just named 3 different options right there. And that just speaks to the versatility that Android brings, where iPhone is just iPhone.
Photos, but in my mind, to actually achieve what we think is a natural look, you almost need that over-processing. And so, like, if you've used Vivo's X80 Pro, I don't know if you have, that has this option called Zeiss Natural Color. And these things are often like just marketing gimmicks, but when I used it, I genuinely thought, wow, that is what my eyes are seeing for one of the first times ever.
Yeah. Let me throw a couple extra variables at you for camera.
Go on.
The shooting experience of, you know what, there's something I want to take a picture of. Let me just get the photo right now. Do you trust that camera? I've had some issues with Pixels where I take a photo and I put the phone back in my pocket, and when I check it the next day, that photo was never saved. Like, that just doesn't happen on the iPhone. And there's a couple, little things like that that make me go, yeah, one thing for the rest of my life, I'm going to take the most stable, reliable one too.
Do you think the iPhone takes the best end results?
No. I think it's very close, but I think you could argue for Samsung's S22 Ultra. I think you could argue for Pixel in some shots, especially in darker environments, and I think you could argue for iPhone in some shots too, with the ultra wide too.
So in that case, it'd be more of a tie, but factoring in the camera experience,
The whole camera experience.
goes to the iPhone. Interesting.
And yeah, we all have our own opinions. And what he said about the reliability, and I said it too when I first started talking 30 minutes ago. But yeah, Android is definitely more versatile, but iOS is just way more stable. And that holds true for the camera as well. Fortunately, I don't take a lot of pictures of things that really have much meaning. So if I happen to not capture it, then I honestly don't care. But yeah, almost everything about the iPhone is just more stable and more reliable because it's easier for Apple to have all that control. So I get what he's saying, and I would completely understand a person himself, making that decision. But as both of them mentioned, there are other brands, so many brands when it comes to the Android ecosystem that it's like, oh wow, maybe Vivo, which I've never owned one of those, but maybe the Pixel, maybe the Samsung, the Sony Xperia stuff. I don't know, man. Like they're trying over there, but it's interesting that Sony makes I think the lenses or not the lenses, I'll just call them the lenses. I mean, I am not a camera guy. Sensors, that makes the sensors for a lot of these cameras, but for their own phones, they're just not, something's not right. So maybe it's just a software optimization that they aren't doing. But anyway, yeah, he says iPhone. Some people probably would say Android, but at least in Android, you're not just like, well, just the Pixel or just the Galaxy. You have options that are also good.
So for me, the fun side of Android cameras is actually a factor. I used to love the days where Huawei would unveil a new phone and it always had this crazy cool gimmick, like a super long zoom camera or incredible night mode. And for me, that would be it'd be like a toy that every time an opportunity presented itself, I would take out my phone and be excited to see what it could do in that situation.
You get a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
And what I would say, which isn't, it's relevant, but what he's saying is like, yeah, the different options that these phones give you. With the Pixel, when I first started using astrophotography mode, I was dumbfounded. Like, it just looked so cool to go outside at night, and I even bought a small little stand to hold the phone. And honestly, I bought the stand before I realized what is it astrophotography? I think that's what it's called. Before I knew what that was. But once I found out, I was like, oh, well, if I need to hold the phone still for 2 minutes, I don't want to hold it in my hand. So let me get this tiny little phone stand that I have, and I press the little button, and you can see the little timer going down. And I feel like the photos in such low light outside were just so vivid that I was like, man, this is amazing. So I kind of want to get another Pixel just to do that, but I don't really have much stuff that I need to take pictures of. It's just yeah, like it's a some might call it a gimmick, some might call it a feature, but it is definitely a nice to have when it comes to added features that the camera app has.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you.
You don't really get.
And then also, real quick, just with the Sony Xperias, with I got the 5 Mark III here. They have their whole Cinema Pro, Video Pro, Photo Pro apps, which just come default on the phone, which have some good features. I'm not a professional photographer. I mean, of course I'm not, but I really don't. I don't use them, but they are there for people who might want to use them. The opportunity to potentially shoot a movie or just a YouTube video or something on the phone with some of these professional features is nice to have baked into the phone. And that's something that this particular brand thinks is important, while another brand, who's also a platform from Android, might say, hey, I don't think that's important, so we'll do this.
That with the iPhone camera. Does it matter?
It kind of reminds me of sports where the most boring team to watch is often the best one.
Okay, so then moving on to videography, I feel like the answer's probably even easier than for you. The iPhone is uncontested videos.
Yeah. You know, I do occasionally slip in shots from other cameras into my videos. The most often I get away with it is the iPhone. I've shot entire videos on the iPhone, no problem.
iPhone takes that one too. It's actually not looking good for Android right now.
Yeah, scoreboard's pretty lopsided.
It's been a bit of a hot topic recently, eco-consciousness. So I guess, in your opinion, if a user is eco-conscious about the planet, which phone is a better option, iPhone or Android?
iPhone. I mean, if we're talking about sustainability and things of that nature, you can buy one phone in 2022 and it potentially is still going to be supported in 2027. And then you'll buy another one and you'll recycle it with Apple, and they'll do whatever. And who was it? I think it was Linus Tech Tips that went to an iPhone recycling center or something, and just seeing how everything was separated and stuff. So definitely iPhone. I mean, Android manufacturers, their job is to sell you another phone. And that's it. They don't make money off of you usually after you've already purchased the phone, where Apple wants to keep you in the ecosystem. So yeah, they're fine selling you one phone today and not selling you another phone until 5 years later, because they know there's a good chance that you're going to give them money other ways, whether it's through additional hardware purchases or through software purchases. So definitely iPhone is more of a eco-conscious decision.
On average.
Well, there's a whole Android spectrum. Let's say you go all the way to the Fairphone,
Right.
which is also in Android land. It's not even close.
I guess the fair comparison would be iPhone flagship versus average Android flagship.
Okay.
And that's right there how already the video, I guess you could have named the video that or whatever, but those are the only, in my opinion, fair comparisons, because as what Marquez just pointed out, and we could have pointed that out for all the other different categories that he's mentioned. Well, are we talking about expensive Android devices, or are we talking about the cheaper ones? So yeah, flagship versus flagship, not including the Fairphone, which even then I'd wonder how support going to work for that. But yeah, flagship versus flagship, it's got to be the iPhone, because at this point it really is just longevity of support. Samsung has promised, I think, 4 years of operating system updates or security updates. I mean, I hate that they break them apart like that, but I think they're more apt to support the phone from a security standpoint longer than they are for an operating system standpoint. But with iOS, you just get them both, and then when they stop supporting it. So I still feel like it's got to be iPhone.
So we take like a rounded average of the Sonys, the Xiaomis, the Samsungs.
Yeah.
So I know this for sure. So
But yeah, once you start doing that average like that, you get 2 years, then you'll get, maybe up to 4, I think 5 for security with the Samsung, and maybe the new Pixels. But again, it's like, well, if the average is going to be 5 and not even the average, if the minimum is going to be 5 for iPhone, then yeah, the average is already skewed when you start looking at Android devices because of other manufacturers who might support, certain phones this long or not, or other ones that long, or just in general, they're saying, hey, 2 years and that's it. So with my Sony devices, what keeps me from wanting to buy them, even though I do, or I would say what's kept me from buying them until I found this one at what I'd consider a reasonable price, is just knowing that the lack of longevity of support was really, really frustrating. And yeah, because their job is to sell you another phone next year. So they might support it for 1 year. I think the phone came with Android 11 on it. It has since gotten the Android 12 update. Somewhere I read that it's going to get an Android 13 update, but I honestly don't know. But with iPhone, I know it's going to get iOS 16. This iPhone 12 mini sitting right next to me, I know it's going to get iOS 16. I know it's going to get iOS 17. And if I start counting, I'm pretty sure it's going to get iOS 18 and probably even 19. But with all of the Android devices that I'm looking at, I don't know when support is actually going to stop. So yeah, it has to be iPhone.
Apple's devices right now on average use about 20% recycled materials. So that is the most in the industry right now. And they also have the most forward goal of being carbon neutral. So they want to be carbon neutral by 2030. I think most other companies are more like 2040, 2050.
I feel Google, you know what, normally I don't take the time to look this up, but I'm going to continue talking about it. I think Google is already it's either Google or Microsoft is already carbon neutral. So yeah, Google, I believe is, well, no, that's Siemens. Yeah, it looks like Google's trying to be carbon neutral by 2030, and I think Microsoft made some similar claim as well too. And of course, when you're the bigger companies, and in fact, I think Google said right there, carbon free. Did I say? Yeah, sorry. I mean, I could just pause the video while I look this up. Okay, so by 2030, we aim to be the first major company to operate on a 24/7 carbon-free energy. So that's different from being carbon neutral because how all that other stuff. Yeah, so 2030, I think for some of the bigger companies is probably where they're heading, and I think my perspective is definitely different from what they're talking about. But it's all kind of wrapped in because it's, of course, how you manufacture the stuff, the packaging, things like that. Where I was kind of thinking more so of, well, regardless of how you make it, it's just, well, if you're encouraging the users to buy more every year, as opposed to saying, hey, well, we don't need to sell everybody a new phone this year, but iPhone or Apple scale is also so much larger. So yeah, let me just shut up.
So from what I've seen, Apple is ahead in that, except for those fringe cases like Nokia does a lot and then Fairphone does a lot. If you're genuinely concerned about the planet, buy a used phone. Yeah, or a refurbished one.
Yeah. Which, yeah, I couldn't agree more with that statement right there. So I hope neither one of them get it. Well, Apple probably will get a point. And interesting, just looking at their faces right now. Like Marquez is just chilling, and Aaron, I think it's his name, is just like, yeah, I guess that could have just been the answer right there. But I am a huge fan of buying used phones. All the phones that I have that I mentioned today are all used phones, with the exception of this Samsung Galaxy S22. I bought it on eBay. It was still factory sealed, so I don't know where the person got it from. But yeah, with the exception of this one device, everything else that I have, even the iPhone, were pre-owned. So yeah, buy used.
But this one goes to the iPhone.
Verizon just gave us all a brand new iPhone 13.
We've been customers for years.
We got iPhone 13s too. Switched 2 minutes ago.
All right, so just before we get to pricing, which I think is probably the big one, we've got 3 categories about the software itself. So I want to start with software reliability. So in my
iPhone, I think Android is more versatile. iPhone is more stable, or iOS is more stable. So it has to be iPhone.
My experience, this is not like a magic phone that just works all the time, like some people say. Like
There is no such thing.
Yeah, I've had bugs, I've had glitches, I've had, the screen dials down its brightness quite a lot when it gets hot.
I have bugs with all kinds of phones. So
Yeah.
yeah, if we're talking just the iPhone, I know specifically it likes to stop wireless charging when it gets kind of warm, and that's just
I don't think that's a bug though. It sounds like it's getting too hot, so let me stop doing this. But
kind of annoying. I guess it has to do that for safety reasons. But there's a bunch of little things in the software. Occasionally, the settings app will just crash. I'll open it and it'll just disappear. I guess when apps crash, they just disappear.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, that's too bad. Like Android will tell you, like, give you an error message or something. But no phone is perfect, so I guess that's sort of the baseline you're working with.
Would you say the iPhone is like equivalently reliable versus Android, or would you side with one over the other?
It kind of goes in waves. I think right now iOS is pretty stable.
And that compares to Android?
Yeah, so let's go Samsung, for example, have been using an S21 Ultra for like a year and a half.
and I'm gonna cut them off right there. So, and this is kind of along the lines of what they're talking about, but let's say when iOS 16 comes out, we know every supported iPhone on day one is going to get it. And I know this isn't specifically about bugs and stuff like that, but it's just, hey, also software availability. Every supported device, so every iPhone 8 and newer is going to get iOS 16. When Android, is it 13? I don't know, 13 or whatever comes out in the fall. I think it's 13. Yes, when Android 13 comes out, I don't know who's getting it. The Pixel, you know what? It's gotten to the point now where I don't even know if the Pixel 6 is going to get it on day one because of all the issues they've had, and I'll explain that in a moment. But what used to be, hey, the Pixels are going to get it on day one whenever they make it, formally available, which even that's kind of not true because there's the Android Open Systems Project, AOSP, I think. So then there's like the build of Android 13 will be available, but then even then Google might not release it until a little bit later when they feel like it's ready for their phones to receive it. But, and this is definitely the case with the latest Android devices, there was some issues with the Pixel 6. So normally every first Monday of the month, you get your security update. But the Pixel 6s were having issues, so you would get the security update for all the other supported Pixels, and it would just say, well, the Pixel 6's security update's coming later. And you're like, what? Yeah. So you're just like, oh, okay. And with these Galaxies, which again, I really don't care for Galaxies, but I bought them just because. Excuse me. I was used to the freedom of being able to just push Android to the phone when using a Pixel the way that you can. But with Samsung, they don't make it nearly as easy. But fortunately, there are tons of smart people on the internet or who use the internet. And you're able to essentially do the same thing, use some special software, get the, the ROM of whatever version that you need for your particular phone. But what I found to be interesting is that I'm a T-Mobile customer. So this Galaxy S22 was originally on T-Mobile's network. So it comes with all that bloatware, so forth and so forth, but then you can push just the, generic version of Android for the S22 in the United States. So you're able to remove a lot of that bloatware. But when I recently went to the website, because I was just curious as to why I hadn't received the June update, the June security update for the phone, I saw that it just wasn't available for the generic version of Android for this phone. If I put Verizon's version of Android for this phone on it, there was a June update that I could have downloaded. So I'm just trying to say, software reliability, they're talking about minor bugs and things like that. Yeah, nothing's perfect. No software is perfect. But the overall experience when it comes to reliability and availability definitely has to go to the iPhone, because I'm talking fragmentation out the wazoo when it comes to Android. I mean, shoot, if I were on a Verizon S22 has the June security update, whereas everybody else just simply doesn't. The Google Pixel 5, let's say, has the June security update, whereas the Google Pixel 6 does not have it. So it's definitely has to be iPhone. But we all have our own opinions. And I am too talking about reliability, but probably more so just availability.
Very stable phone.
I feel like this is slightly off topic, but why not the S22?
A couple tiny things. The vibration motor is so weak on that phone. I was missing calls and notifications. Do you not have that problem?
No.
Yeah, I miss the way, like, this phone sits on a desk and, like, vibrates, and I hear it on the desk to pick it up.
Yeah.
That one, I just miss things all the time. Little thing.
Yeah.
But basically the same experience everywhere else on the phone. And I was like, let me just stick with the one that works. Slightly less screen curve on the side, too.
So bizarre you choose to use last year's phone because it works better for you.
It's a whole year old. It's crazy. Yeah, no, that's just my choice. No, it's good.
But yeah, see what he said, right? Like that's what we as they're definitely tech enthusiasts, and that's how I am too. It's like, yeah, wow, you're using last year's phone, but yeah, so just interesting that he said it like that. I thought it was kind of funny.
It's really good. Matte black everything, by the way. It's really good design.
You talk a lot, though, actually, about the camera being more reliable on the iPhone.
It's quick to shoot. So there's some where they're a little less consistent. I'll open the camera app the first time, and it'll open up right away, takes the shot.
Yeah.
And then a week later, I go to open up the camera, and it goes, let me think about that for a second, and then it opens up.
Yeah.
It's just those little things that I noticed. But just in regular apps, you've done a lot of the side-by-sides. You can see the way they behave. They're very similar, so... yeah.
Okay, so we'll give reliability a draw. Okay, so then software features. This is kind of a broad category. So obviously,
yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and say that it should be a draw between the two because, in fact, I'd almost want to say, it's subjective. It's really what do you need the phone to do, and I feel, as I said before, Android is more versatile, iOS is more stable. You're going to have more options. Like just the mere fact that folding phones exist, but only exist in the Android space is something that iOS doesn't have. And aside from things that are ecosystem specific, like AirDrop, that's an iOS feature, but it only works between other iOS devices or if you have a Mac or something. So it's, yeah, that's cool. But, Google's tried their nearby share thing, which is, high refresh rates, widgets at a particular time. There are different things, different nuances that it's like, well, if you don't need it, then it doesn't really matter. But I'd say there's probably just more options when it comes to Android.
both OSs do pretty much everything you'd want to. But the question here is, does one OS do something that the other one just cannot match? What things does iOS do that Android is just not there right now with?
Not a lot. I mean, there's...
And I'm going to cut them off again because they even mentioned it earlier with the whole multitasking. So if you wanted to run two apps simultaneously on an Android device that is big enough for that to actually make sense, then yeah, do that. Like on this Surface Duo that I have, there are two distinct screens on this phone. I can have two apps running simultaneously on that on the phone. So yeah, I feel like, yeah, it's definitely subjective, but Android itself definitely has way more options. Yeah.
There's a couple things where you'll just dig into the settings and find stuff in Android world that does not exist in iPhone world. And across the board, there are all kinds of features in specialty phones, gaming phones, all sorts.
Yeah, I think that first one he showed was one of the Sony Xperias, which, yeah, that interface was almost as if you were using an actual Sony Alpha whatever camera.
Stuff that you will just never find in an iPhone. So that's the way I look at it.
Right.
Are there things in iPhones that don't show
I guess,
up in
yeah, like I'm thinking more like AirDrop, right? People...
Yeah, see, I said AirDrop. Like, yeah, that's a very specific thing that iOS has where nearby share exists. It hasn't been around as long, so it's not as refined. And I've tried it, and actually, for what was I was using? I think like between like 2 pixels or something, and I transferred a pretty large movie or something, and it worked. But it's definitely not as intuitive and easy to use, I'd say, as AirDrop is. But iMessage is the big one. FaceTime is there too, even though we have Google Duo. But the act of video calling is called FaceTiming. Just like the act of searching something online is called Googling. So FaceTime definitely used to be, oh man, at FaceTime, it's so much better than any other video messaging app. Or video conferencing app, whatever you want to call it. And then iMessage is definitely a thing that I don't even care if it gets open. I just want the iPhone to support RCS, which I feel from a from a multidisciplinary and platform protocol supporting type deal. It's like I feel Android is like, hey, yeah, we're open to do stuff. iPhone's like, well, this is what we want to do, and if you want to hop on board, cool. But yeah, AirDrop definitely is cool. However, I would like there to be just USB 3 on the freaking on the freaking bottom of the phone. That would make things easy too, depending on what you're transferring, obviously, or and who you're transferring it to.
People see that as a necessary feature.
Sure.
FaceTime, a lot of people see as irreplaceable.
Oh, interesting.
You've got SharePlay. You know, a lot of people love the fact that you can, especially now with iOS 16, you can send a message to someone and they can jump into a SharePlay with you.
Yeah.
That's pretty convenient. But I guess the caveat with a lot of iPhone's cool features is that they're further locking you in to more
Yeah.
Apple products.
There are
Exactly. And that's what I was getting at too just a few moments ago was that, yeah, they work with other Apple products. And in the world we live in, interoperability should be a goal. Of course, some would say, well, when you start doing that, then the overall user experience starts to get degraded. So depending on what we're talking about, sometimes that's true. But I feel with how big these companies are and how smart the people are that work there, there are ways to make it so that it doesn't improve, it doesn't drastically affect the quality of experience. In fact, it should just make it better because if I'm texting you, I I shouldn't know. I shouldn't need to know that you have an iPhone. But with iMessage, I know, hey, I'm texting this person and they have an iPhone. I would like a world where I can send you this high quality photo or this 40-second video without it being compressed out the wazoo with the default messaging app on the phone, as opposed to saying, well, let's both download WhatsApp or Signal or whatever the other options are. Yeah. But yeah, interoperability should be the goal, not platform or ecosystem lock-in.
lots and lots and lots of features in the Android world that are very important to a small number of people. And then there are iMessage, FaceTime, AirDrop, things like that in iPhone world that are
And I feel like, yeah, those are the staple things. Mr. Who's the Boss said SharePlay, which is a relatively new feature, and I don't know, it's a good concept, but then I don't know how much people are using it because it is so new. And then I don't have the answer to the question, but like, let's say we both want to watch something on Netflix together. But then, I have, in fact, not even Netflix, let's say Hulu, where I have the ad supported version of Hulu and you don't. If we're watching it together, what happens when those ads play? Or do the ads not play for me? And that's one of those things where it's like, all right, we both have iPhones. Then do we both have to have this other streaming service? And it's cool, but even then, that's locking you into another streaming service that you both have to have, which there's no way, not for that to work or for that not to happen. If you're sharing something with somebody, they have to have the app, obviously. But yeah, I think just for me, it's more features that work specifically with. But in fact, I knew where I was going with that. SharePlay itself, though, is just another thing that locks you into iOS, regardless of what app you're using to share. It's, well, does SharePlay work with an Android? No. Does SharePlay work with my Microsoft Windows desktop? No. So yeah, like things that lock you in could potentially improve your experience if the people that you're using it with also have those same products, which then allow you to use those same features. But interoperability should be the common goal as we progress, which I know it's not the case, but yeah.
pretty important to a lot of people. A smaller number of features, but like, does Samsung DeX matter to you?
Yeah, no.
Does pass-through charging matter to you?
No.
Right? But like, there's an endless list of those things that you can find on certain Android phones that would tilt it in Android's favor for sure.
Yeah.
But there's these massive pillars on the iPhone, a small number of them, that make a compelling case. That make a compelling case.
It's a new way of thinking about it.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm happy that I'm thinking. I feel like I'm thinking the same way that they're both thinking. Like I've watched a lot of their videos, and I really care about this stuff because I think it's vitally important. But yeah, it is. Yeah, you have one thing that locks people into the iPhone. I mean, regardless, yeah, iMessage, and I'll say a few things. But yeah, it's just they don't have a lot, but they are so ingrained into the platform that without them, it would drastically impact the overall experience. So yeah. I'm enjoying this more than I thought that I would, but I'm happy I decided to watch it.
So I guess, yeah, you probably can't call a winner in this category. One of the key advantages that Android used to have is customization. But, you could argue that Apple is catching up with that, especially now with iOS 16, all that lock screen stuff. You know how, like, a lot of people think that smartphones are kind of coming to a plateau, right? If Apple is in this kind of mindset of, we'll wait for other companies to do stuff, we'll do it later, but we'll do it better, does that mean that when both OSs reach their final kind of mature stages, that Apple will actually be ahead? Because with each feature they've integrated, they've really taken their time and done it properly.
It feels like there's always going to be a bleeding edge that Apple's not going to really dabble in.
Between the two assistants, you've got Siri on iPhone, you've got Google Assistant on Android.
Yeah.
I think
Not a competition. Google is definitely miles ahead of Siri. Hey Siri. Oh yeah, I got that thing turned off. But anyway, yeah, Google is miles ahead. And then also, when it comes to like WWDC versus Google I/O, I feel Google in general, I feel like they're trying to contribute to the planet. Whereas Apple is trying to say, hey, our iPhone is cooler this year. Yeah, Tim Cook says they want health to be the biggest. Tim Cook wants Apple's biggest contributor to this world to be health. I mean, okay, if you say so, but I feel Google is like, we just want to make the world better. Regardless of if you physically buy our products, but our software is everywhere. And what we're able to do with it, like things with the assistant, I think, it just makes the world a better place. Now, of course, that means Google just has a bunch of user data, which some people would be opposed to. But there has to be some compromise. Like they can't have none of your data and still have an amazing product. They have a good product, I feel, with none of your data. But they need data to be able to do whatever it is that they do. I'm not going to try to pretend to understand everything that they do. But when I watched both events this year, I felt like Apple was more of this is how you can make stuff for our platforms better. And Google was like, this is what we're doing to make the world better. And you can do stuff too to make the world better.
unanimously, most people would say Google Assistant is better between the two. Like, it's faster, it can do more, it's more intelligent. But how much do you use it, the Assistant?
I use it all the time for a couple key things. Taking notes, setting timers, shopping list. I ask it in the morning every day what the weather and news is going to be, stuff like that. Not that Siri can't do that, but there's a good amount of stuff I use it for. But are we taking averages? Because we've got, let me see, Cortana is available, Alexa is available, Bixby is available. But I guess all those phones are Google Assistant too, so
yeah.
I guess, yeah, I give that edge to Google.
So you never actually use Siri?
No, I very rarely use Siri.
Oh.
I accidentally trigger Siri more than I use Siri.
That's so funny. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, Siri. You know, sometimes I find when I'm cussing out Siri, he actually goes, You
Yeah,
know?
they just perk up like, oh, what did you say?
Yeah.
Never mind Siri.
Do you have any kind of hot takes on the new features that Google announced for Android 13 versus the new features that Apple announced for iOS 16?
So the one thing about customization that we're arguing, like the iPhone is catching up.
Yeah.
The lock screen widgets, it's better than Android.
Okay.
It's better.
That's a pretty hot take.
It might be a hot take. You know, Android has had widgets forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with that. That lock screen widgets, which I don't have any widgets on my lock screen for any of the Android phones that I have. I think I have a couple widgets once I unlock it, but yeah, for the actual lock screen, I don't think I've ever had any. Can you do that on Android? Have lock screen widgets?
And so there's endless customization with widgets, but this like late approach we've talked about with Apple, where they come in late but do things really well. Suddenly, lock screen widgets, if you're into that, looks better on the iPhone.
Okay, so you're thinking it's better from a visual perspective. It's not that there's more options or anything like that.
Yeah, it's consistency, it's visual, it's aesthetics, it's the way you customize it, it's simple and easy to understand.
Yeah.
If I tried to hand this phone to my mom and said, add a lock screen widget, go, like that's very different. So that sort of thing, I sort of, maybe that's a hot take, but I give the iPhone the edge there. But yeah, overall, a lot of good features coming out of both camps.
Cool. So we'll call that category a draw. So then the final one about software is about software support.
Oh yeah, and I definitely jumped the gun with this one, talking about everything when he was talking about software reliability. But essentially everything I said. I mean, you know what you're getting with the iPhone for the most part. They supported the 6S. It has with iOS 15 on it now. And let's see, when I'm gonna look it up. When was the iPhone 6S release date? So that thing came out back in 2015. So whatever version of iOS that was back then. But yeah, so 2015, and then it got updated in 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So we're talking, what, 6 updates. So I guess that's really 7 versions of iOS then, if it's been updated 6 times. You're not going to find that on Android. I mean, it'd be nice, and Samsung and maybe Google, might. Now, what I will say, and this is a shocker for me, is that Microsoft. So this Surface Duo that I have right here. Let me open it real fast because again, you gotta use 2 hands to open it. Let me go to the settings, and under security, you can see what the current security update is. So it currently has the June update. Today is June 26th, and it's had it for a while. So it's not like I just got it today, but it is the most up-to-date phone I have in terms of security update. So neither one of my Samsungs have the June update. Actually, my Xperia might have it too. No, I'm pretty sure that has May. In fact, I'm gonna pause it real fast and I'm gonna go get it because I don't want there to be too much silence. Hold on one second. So yeah, the Xperia that I have has the May update along with my S22s. So I'm hoping that Microsoft takes the Pixel-ish approach / the iPhone approach of, well, we aren't going to make a ton of phones every year, so we'll be able to support those phones for longer because we're not trying to support 15 phones a year like Samsung does or however many they release. So if Microsoft releases 1 phone a year, it'd be nice if this Surface Duo was still operational, will still support it in 4 years. I mean, I don't know if they promised anything online, but to me it makes sense. And if the form factor stays the same, 2 screens, true hinge in the middle, whatever the size of the screens, I don't know if that really matters. But yeah, I'm hopeful that what I'm seeing so far, and again, in terms of it being June, me having the June update, we'll see what happens in July. I'm not expecting it on the first Monday of the month, like the Pixel, but if I'm able to keep it up, and if I'm able to get Android 13 on this, which again, Android 13 and I think, or 12L, I don't know. One of them is supposed to be optimized for multi-device or folding phone, multi-screen devices or folding phones. So hopefully that will be a time for us to say, hey, this new version of Android is for devices like this, so we should get it. And maybe we'll continue getting stuff for folding devices. Again, if Microsoft only releases 1 phone a year, I am really, really hopeful for that. But outside of that, I'm like, yeah, I don't know, a couple years, whatever. But definitely not as many as the iPhone.
And this is another one of those where on paper, Apple just kind of takes it away because you get 5 years of updates. You know, the closest competitor is Samsung, which does 4. And then after that, it kind of falls to 3 and 2, and then sometimes 1 in those kind of ugly cases. So what's your take?
I think that's kind of it. There isn't really any other nuance to it. Like, how you like your software updates. You like to be advanced. Hopefully they download quickly. Like, no, I just want to have the latest update. I don't really care. So that one's pretty straight.
Now, I will say, interesting that he said it like that. So with, and somebody was complaining about it. I forget who. So I've been used to my security updates on Android for whatever, however it is. And usually with the Pixel, that was my, okay, this is the process. So you go to the little security thing, you tap on the security update little icon or whatever. It goes out, checks for an update. Boom, if it's there, it starts saying, all right, check it for update. Then preparing for update. Then for some reason, it always freezes and pauses and says, hey, we'll continue after when you tell us to do so, or when the phone is determined it's the best time to do it. But then, all right, so then it starts downloading. Then it's like, okay, installing, whatever update. Then optimizing apps. And you can do you can continue using the phone while all this is happening. But sometimes I feel like it just takes forever. Now, granted, the last phone I was doing that on was a Pixel 4a, so it wasn't the most powerful device. So on a more powerful one, maybe that would be a little faster. But I think that because it's now competing with whatever else you might be doing, and that might literally just be Android running in the foreground with this process that now might be in the background or however it works. But there's a bunch of stuff going on while it's trying to install the update as well as optimize the apps, which is one of the screens that it goes through. Now with the Galaxy, for part of that process, the phone isn't off, of course, but it's in that pre-boot stage, so you can't do anything with the phone. But I feel like because it's that, it then speeds up the process of it. So if you need to continue using your phone, yeah, definitely the Google Pixel is good for it. But if you just want to get it done, which sounds like Marquez doesn't care about that, and I don't know if I really care about it, but it was nice to see something different and something that was like, oh, this actually just goes a lot faster if it does it without full-blown Android attempting to run or running while optimizing the apps that I may or may not be using. And I don't know if you're using a particular app and it's attempting to optimize it, will it just close it? I honestly don't know. But yeah, it was just nice to see something different. And I think Apple kind of has a similar approach too, where a lot of stuff goes on in that pre-boot phase because you'll download it, preparing for update, verifying, whatever, and then it'll ask if you want to restart it, and then it will. And I feel like during that restart process, a lot of stuff is happening, and sometimes it does take a little while.
Forward to me.
Okay, so that one goes to iPhone. I guess there's one potential saving grace for Android, which is even though they have less first-party support, they do have better community support, right? You've got the custom ROM community, modding, forums, all that kind of stuff. This is the thing, right? Yeah, so when I started my YouTube channel, it actually started because the phone I got first was not as good as I wanted it to be. And so I basically devoted my entire life to trying to understand how to hack it, to make it better, to overclock it, and all these sorts of things. But as smartphones have gotten better, they kind of don't need it.
The fact that you still can is cool for some, but it's some.
Yeah, probably a shrinking minority. Okay, so the last...
Yep, and that's it. As stuff has gotten better, the operating systems have gotten better, the hardware has gotten better. Yeah, the need to tinker as much as people used to. Yeah, honestly, this isn't there because the phone probably does whatever you want it to do, or there's a version of Android, on a particular manufacturer's phone that does what you want it to do. And yeah, the need to do all that stuff just honestly isn't there for a lot of people.
Thing is pricing, and it's obviously a bit of a tough one to kind of blanket because Androids, iPhones, there's lots of different price ranges. But I guess we could...
But we've definitely got to the point now where you can buy a $400 iPhone, or you can buy a probably $1,500, $1,600 iPhone. So I think they've captured a good space. And if you're buying a $200 Android device, which I'm sure you can find one, some of those Motorola's were kind of cheap. I know I bought a Moto G Power for I think $250. But that was a couple years ago. I don't know, inflation and stuff. But yeah, I mean, if you're getting sub $400 Android devices, expect sub $400 performance. Whereas if you get a $400 iPhone, the iPhone SE, you're still getting a flagship level chip, but just some other compromises that might affect your overall experience with the phone. But yeah, I'm curious to see what they have to say.
Boil it down to value, right? Which one do you think, if any, is better value for the money?
I think some of these you want to just average things out, but in price, it really is just about choice. And in the Android world, there is simply more choice. If you care about value, I can name 3 or 4 Android phones with spectacular value. If you don't care about value, we can give you the highest end Android phones in the world that cost $1,500.
Or get a caviar phone with 55 diamonds on the back.
Right.
Yeah. To answer the question of which one can give you the best value if you search for it, it would be Android.
Yeah.
Because at the budget end, like a Poco phone, for example, $250.
Yeah, you can go way down.
Yeah.
Or you can go you can go Pixel 5 or 6A. Or you can go $700, $800. We can go Fan Edition S21. You can go anywhere in there.
Just out of curiosity, how good value do you think the latest iPhone SE is? That's their kind of lowest end phone right now.
For $429, which is what it is now. I said $399 or $400. Yeah, it's $429. It's an okay value. I mean, yeah, if you want to be in the iOS ecosystem or the Apple ecosystem, yeah, it's an okay value. I wish it would have been $350. maybe even $2.99, and it's just, hey, we make it. If people buy it, great. It's at an unbelievably low price, but I think they put 5G in it, and that definitely hiked up the price a little bit. And for the added benefits of what 5G might add, I don't think it's worth it. Now, I do wonder, had they not put 5G in there, would the prices have been different? I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. But yeah, I think that's an okay value. I'm not buying it. And in fact, I was going to recommend somebody to buy it, but once I saw the price, I said, you know what, you should just get a 13 mini or a 12 mini since they're still selling them. But of course, my first suggestion is, hey, find something used. But you know, some people prefer buying new things. So
Yeah. The lowest end phone for them is their best value, naturally. It's competitive for like one of the best values, but value is very much up to what you care about in a phone. So if I care about FaceTime, iMessage, camera, that's a great value phone. If I care about, here's a couple games I want to play, I need 120 hertz and I need a big battery, SE is a terrible value for you for that same price.
Yeah.
So, options. Options.
Okay, yeah. Pricing's a tough one, so call that a draw. Oh, wait, no, we're calling that an Android.
Call that an Android.
Yeah, we'll call that an Android. I'm so tired. It's like, what time is it now? 11:20. Okay.
Yeah.
The iPhone does significantly win more categories than the Android, but obviously that's not the full story.
Yeah. It's very much a personal decision. That decision ultimately comes down to what the person who's going to go get the phone actually cares about. There are objective winners in some of these, and then there are very subjective winners in some of these too.
Like photography, you were outright iPhone. I'm actually outright Android.
There it is.
But yeah, no, thanks for this. This was really fun.
Yeah.
So I'm just here from the editing desk, and yeah, basically, we really wanted to not waste this opportunity. Like, we wanted this video to happen. That's why it's kind of so late. That's why the lighting kind of sucks. But, you know, I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you did.
Google Fi, a phone.
yeah, I think that was a pretty good video. Yeah, probably the two biggest tech YouTubers right now. What's that other guy? Unbox Therapy. I mean, I know he has a crap ton of subscribers too, but I don't really watch much of his stuff anymore. I think I used to. But yeah, good video. All in all, I think that summary that he said in a matter of 45 seconds is what I was trying to capture in the first 10 minutes of what I was saying. So yeah, it depends. And that's really it. So it's now an hour and 17 minutes. I'm quite confident nobody has gotten this far. But if you have, thanks. I really appreciate it.